Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Sunday Brunch. I am Chris Parrish, and alongside with me is Bobby Money Munson. And before we get started, we want to make sure that we say thank you to our sponsors. Right there down below, RK Athletics 1, Rich King is providing you with some of the greatest and some of the best details when it comes to fitness, nutrition. So if you want to get into, say, better shape, or if you want to get a little bit healthier, go check out Rich at RK Athletics 1 right now to get your free, or not free, but get your proper direction to a better life. Go see Rich and make sure you get those sessions in. And if you're not exactly able to do in person, he does online seminars as well. So make sure you check that out. And then for the big one, make sure you go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code LOVEWRESTLING to get not only 20% off, which is amazing, you also get free shipping as well. And let me tell you something. Lawnmower 4.0, it will change your life. It is one of the best, quietest razors you'll ever get, and you will not want to get another razor. I absolutely love mine. And before Bobby we get to you, Turnbuckle Doc, what's up, buddy? Thank you for hopping in today. Bobby, how are you doing? And thank you for joining me.
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you for being here to host here today. I think it was a bit of a close call. That's why we're getting a little bit of a late start on the brunch, but happy to be here. Looking forward to talking to some great fans that tune in every single week to us here on Sunday Brunch. So let's get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, if we want to let the listeners know a little bit of inside dirt, I woke up not wanting to really do much. And then, we had a very close call on having to postpone brunch. But we cannot say no to Sunday Brunch on Sundays. That would be a faux pas here at Love Wrestling. So we wanted to make sure we give you guys everything. Astrid jumping in. Hey, thank you. We got the natural. Make sure you get yourself a natural shirt at whatamaneuver.net. I will put up the link now. It is quite amazing. I think I'm going to have to get myself one. There it is. Make sure you're going to whatamaneuver.net/collection/love-wrestling-ca and pick up your Love Wrestling shirt. Get your natural shirt. And then, that'd be a little bit of all right, if you ask me. Bobby, what say you on this week of pro wrestling? What really looked interesting on you? What kind of caught your eye this week?
Well, I mean, a few things caught my eye, but I mean, most importantly, I mean, I want to say that Walter was the one that caught my eye this week, but I guess I'd be wrong in calling him Walter at this point, would I not?
Well, you can do my artist formerly known as Walter, and you're not wrong. Used that for Piper Nevin for a while until I'm just like, screw it, I'll call her Dewdrop or whatever.
I guess. To be honest, it's like I'm not worried about, like, especially with a guy named Walter. I mean, call him Fred for all I care. I mean, the guy kicks ass either way, and I'm looking forward to him beating guys up all the time. It's just, I mean, I guess the controversy surrounding the name itself. I mean, maybe the WWE creative team should have looked a little bit deeper into things before going and throwing a name out there and stuff like that. But again, it is what it is. It's a name change. It's typical of WWE. I mean, I guess if they want to tarnish all that's been built up about this guy on their own programming as it is, then that's up to them. As long as they continue to use him in the same ass-kicking way that they've used him previously. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting. When the name change occurred, I think that's kind of the thing that makes no sense to a lot of people. It's just the timing of this name change, because he's been Walter for a good chunk of time now. He had the historic reign with the NXT United Kingdom Championship, and then all of a sudden he's in NXT 2.0, and then now and he wrestles a match against Roderick Strong as Walter, and then he wins this match, and then all of a sudden he's like, the winner of this match, slams it down, and it's like, purchase pretty sudden. And you're just like, what? Why? And it's like, I don't know. It's like you just change your name like all of a sudden. It's like, I don't know. It reminded me of like when, remember when I think it was Headbanger Mosh was like being Beaver Cleavage or whatever. And then like all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm just a kid from Jersey. I'm just Chaz. And then all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, and I'm not invested.
Yeah, pretty much.
But
But
I mean,
I'm still invested on the Walter side of things. But
yeah,
the other problem is it wasn't even that long ago that they had Walter versus Ilya Dragunov promoted on an NXT pay-per-view event anyway. So again, this is twice now that this guy's been used in NXT television as Walter, if you don't actually count the more superior NXT UK division that they have going on that everybody should be paying attention to. So then, yeah, the name change, I understand. It's drastic. It's out of left field. It's really unnecessary. But at the same time, at the heart of it still lies probably one of the most fearsome newcomers in pro wrestling, a guy that's on the rise. Like, this is a guy I'd love to be seeing mix it up with the big boys on the main roster even. I mean, this is a guy that should be headlining with guys like Brock Lesnar, because I'd love to see him and Brock Lesnar tear a house down.
yeah, and I think, well, first off, I just want to say hello to the Wordsmith who's joining us in the chat. Appreciate you taking the time to joining us today. Yeah, and that's kind of like, for me, like it's what's in a name, and like what does a name mean? Because you can call anybody anything, but they're the one who gets to dictate what that name really is. And what I thought was really cool was Finn Balor even tweeted out when it's like the Gunther graphic on Twitter, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember when people hated Finn too." And I just thought that was really telling, because I also remember, a guy like Steve Austin also, said, "Guess what? I was the ringmaster and it failed. And then I became something else. You evolve." So who knows at this point? Plus, I also want to add, like, maybe there is something to this change that we don't know about yet. Maybe it's one of those things where WWE is like, "Look, we want to license the name," and maybe the possibility of licensing the name Walter wasn't applicable. So maybe we're gonna license the name Gunther, just so we actually have intellectual property that we can actually own. And this could be actually a sign that the artist known as Walter, now performing under the name Gunther. Boom! I think that's how you do it right there, by the way. I think this is a really good case of understanding that he's probably going to be available for the NXT moving forward now. And I think this is a permanent move for him to the United States.
Yes.
And if that's the case, this is a huge addition to WWE, and look for probably him becoming a member of the main roster sooner than later.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think that is where I become more excited about the prospect of him being more full-time in the North American market, where he hasn't had an opportunity to be seen quite so much. And I'm glad for this move. I'm glad for the WWE that they were able to facilitate this move, and they didn't lose Walter to the sake of another company or somewhere else around the world. They actually secured that deal, made him come into NXT 2.0. I'm sure he's going to tear it up there and be a force to reckon with. And I swear within the year, we're going to be talking about Gunther on the main roster.
Yeah, and I think too, like, as long as you don't take away from what the performer has done and where he's going, you just won't get any backlash. But unless you change his name and then you're changing like his look and his appearance and everything we've come to know and appreciate about Walter, then I can understand a little bit more hesitation to accepting just the change in general. But I think if you just leave what we know of Walter alone and just add another title, like a different title to it, I think the fans will just forget about the name change over time. Like, I don't think it'll be a big thing. Presentation has everything to do with what you're calling it. I mean, people kind of forget about, or I don't want to say forget, because we still know about how stupid of a pay-per-view name Great Balls of Fire is. But if you put on a great show like they did with a great main event, people kind of be like, "Oh, okay, fine, stupid name, but great show." And they talk more about the show than the name.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm with you. And also throwback. Hello, guy. How are you? The artist formerly known as Prince. Anyone?
Prince David. I got your words, man.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Prince Ikea, to be honest.
Let's go back to the Finn thing for a moment, though, because I mean, it's one thing for Finn to say, nobody was on board with the name Finn at first, but they did bring him in as Finn Balor, I believe, right from the get-go. He didn't come in as Prince Devitt, where Walter, they have promoted him on their own television as Walter. So there is a little slight difference there. So I can understand if we're going to argue on the side of people that are frustrated with the name change. But at the same time, I'm going to be that person in the middle and say that, yeah, we just got to see this pan out. Let's see where it goes before we start, getting all on this case and stuff like that. Maybe Walter himself wanted this change. Maybe he's on board with this change, and it was part of his suggestion as well too. We don't know the inner workings behind the scenes that came about doing this whole thing. So I think we need to see it flesh out and see that they're going to still promote him as this monstrous force to be reckoned with, this dominating champion that we got used to seeing from the NXT UK division. I want to see this guy come in and absolutely tear it up with the different people that he has to work with now. And there's so many great matches to look forward to with Walter there on a full-time basis, whether he's Walter, Gunther, or whatever they change it to in a week's time. I don't care, as long as at the heart of it, we still have an ass kicker.
Yeah, and I think too, if people are not aware, I believe WWE had bought the name or bought the rights to the name Gunther Stark, and then realized about the history of that, translating back to a person who fought in the war in the Nazi group. From what I've understood, they have dropped the trademark filing for Gunther Stark, and they're just using Gunther moving forward. So any clarification about that, hoping that WWE does not go that route, doesn't look like they will. Also, from what I've understood, there wasn't a hesitation from Walter to use this name. He is okay with it. From the sounds of it, there is no, quote unquote heat for changing the name. So if the performer's committed to it, then I think there should be a little bit more ease from the fans understanding it, because as long as the performer is comfortable for doing this, I think we should be a little less critical of the semantics of the name change, and just, again, like you're saying, let it see through. Let's see how it's presented moving forward before we really throw our full opinion on it, because you're definitely going to want to see something through before you judge it. And I just want to get to throwback. I think the name change is because the root might have had historic sense. It's wrong to have the name Gunther associated with past historic terms of World War II, or a stigma that people with said name is a bad person. Hope they book him as a beast and eventually go against Roman. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see Imperium against Bloodline. That'd be really nice. But with that being said, I think and I'm going to ask you this too, because I know you're involved with Prairie Pro Wrestling out in Saskatchewan. Nice plug, by the way. And then obviously, if people don't know, I am one half of the RCW Tag Team Champions. So just had to, right?
Even better plug.
Just happened to be there. I wasn't there specifically for an appearance. But sports. All right.
No, there's a name.
Right. I'm doing this because his name is fantastic. Spot Center, Nana, top notch.
I love it.
Top notch. Where?
And the champ is here.
Where?
You just can't see him.
Yeah, exactly. I can't see anybody. But my thing is that I've always used pro wrestling, and I always looked at pro wrestling as kind of I'm watching it to get away from reality. It's like almost my escape of reality in a way. That's when I started watching it as a kid. That's how I've always looked at it. So if there's something like a World War II reference or whatever, I don't really like associating my wrestling with the real world. It's kind of my escape. I kind of wanted to get to your kind of opinion on that, because I think nowadays we see too much intertwining of the real world into pro wrestling, sometimes making pro wrestling look morally wrong. Whereas to me, I've always looked at wrestling as my escape from reality. It's kind of like a different world than everything. Not saying you should just go ahead and do everything in wrestling when you shouldn't, but I do think pro wrestling has a platform to where they can make a positive change with their platform about something, instead of commending something that's negative. Where do you kind of stand on that stuff, knowing that you're a part of kind of the behind the stages or behind the scenes stuff with PPW down in Sask?
Yeah, and I mean, you've really got to kind of toe the line a little bit and stuff too. Like, I mean, I'm in full agreement with you that sometimes you want to go away for an escape, and that's why you tend to see such colorful characters and stuff like that. That I mean, might come out and they have some nasty things to say to the crowd, but they're not necessarily playing on a stereotype or a stigma or something like that to try to generate that heat. They're generating the heat because they pick on somebody's grandma in the front row or something like that. The same old heat that's gotten over for years in professional wrestling. And you do have to toe the line of sensitivity and stuff like that too, and that's where I think maybe WWE needs to hit the pause button sometimes and check out their history and stuff, because if everybody else can go out there and find this information so quickly on the internet, you think that Vince and company could hire the right people to be fact checking names and stuff like that before they go ahead and try to trademark things, and think to themselves for a minute, is this maybe a little too real or a little too insensitive to a certain part of the audience and stuff like that? You really got to toe that line and think like, is this the right move for business? Is the right kind of heat that we're going to generate from doing this worth the value to our company and stuff like that? And I think that's where sometimes, even in talking about what we're going to do on shows and stuff like that, we have to sit there and go, that seems like a funny idea to us three guys sitting in a room having a beer talking about it, but might not be so funny when we go pull it off in front of a room full of people that aren't really in on the inside joke sometimes at the same time. So you really got to watch for those types of sensitivities, I find. And you're right, it's got to be an escape, and people find it hard to escape if they're just drawn right back into that same old reality that they're getting every time they tune into the news, every time they turn on the radio these days, and all this stuff that really brings a negative feeling to them and stuff like that. And that's why we want to get them out to a show so that they can boo loudly at the guys they hate and watch as these heroes come in and give them their comeuppance and teach them a lesson inside that wrestling ring.
Yeah, and that's just like, so kind of begs, and like one of the prime examples of like where you kind of wanted to see whoever thought of the idea to get their head out of the sand is, remember when they were bringing up the Charlottes, the Sashas, and all that, and they were doing all those trio groups. I remember that, I think it was Paige, Charlotte, and Becky. They didn't realize the name they were going to give them was also the name of an adult movie.
And you can't tell me not one person backstage could have stood up and said, like guys, like, come on, I know what's wrong about this one.
I would have just thought one of the people in the group who had a slip up when it came to those kind of scenarios could have been like, actually. However, that's here nor there. Sometimes you just got to be a little bit more coherent with the translation of your world, which is the world of WWE, with the real world. And hopefully somebody actually can say, hey, man, not a good idea. And that's kind of the point. So, but yeah, no, I think we all are in agreement that we'd like to see the artist formerly known as Walter, now known as Gunther. We hope that he does very well, and we hope that we can talk about him in a positive light moving forward, instead of just saying, oh, remember when they changed his name and then now we got this version? Like, what are they doing with him? And then he's, released for budget reasons in 3 weeks or something silly.
Better yet, it kind of brings up the idea that in a week's time, we could see Gunther in the Royal Rumble match.
Yep. And how interesting would it be if a guy like Gunther was in the position that, say, maybe Keith Lee was just a couple years ago, hopefully with better results in terms of where he is. But I mean, he could be the guy that's being used as the big man. Maybe there's face-offs with him and a Goldberg, or a Lesnar, or whoever, some of the bigger guys in the Royal Rumble men's match. That might be a good little segue. Something that caught my eye is WWE releasing, I believe it's already 18 names for the women's Royal Rumble match, or either, I think about maybe 10, 11 or so have been announced for the men's. What are your kind of early thoughts about the Royal Rumble matches? And is this something that you're looking forward to? Because as I believe Sean Mack in the comments has already, he is going nuts over it.
And we should mention that this is, hold on here, Sean McDade in Glasgow, Scotland. So hello to Glasgow, Scotland here from us here on Sunday Brunch.
So but it looks like it's going to be a very solid card. But what do you have in terms of early thoughts about the Royal Rumble?
I'm excited for once, and I love the Royal Rumble match. I have for years. This is the time of year I love getting in there and watching people get tossed over the top ropes. And this is the one time of year I don't mind a little bit of comedy in my wrestling as well too, because it works well in the Royal Rumble match, and they still take it serious at the end of the day for who's going to win it, who's going to go on to WrestleMania. If we're talking about the men's Royal Rumble match, I almost think that there's a bit of a swerve happening. They keep talking about Charlotte putting herself in the Royal Rumble match with the idea that she wins and picks her own opponent. But how about this scenario? What if Brock Lesnar shows up, wins the Royal Rumble match, is still the champion, and chooses to fight Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wouldn't, and I would almost counter that with the same thing of what happens if Roman Reigns defeats Seth Rollins and decides to do the same thing, maybe wins the Rumble and chooses to fight nobody and have a night off at WrestleMania, or like something like that. I wouldn't be shocked to see a title versus title possible unification match at WrestleMania. Personally, I would not be in favor of it. I would like to see, something else, something more creative happen, but I wouldn't be shocked and I wouldn't be opposed to WWE understanding that, hey, maybe let's, dwindle down the amount of championships we have and finally commit to, maybe the one roster moving forward instead of a brand split that I think might be time to kind of get rid of.
Yes.
So, wouldn't be. I think there's at least a shock coming in the women or in the men. Sorry, I think when you have this amount of people not already announced that you're, looking forward not only to it, but like who's going to be the remaining guys, but also is there going to be a nostalgia act or whether or not there's a return, a debut? We don't know. And I'm very much curious about that because this is the one pay-per-view that if you're going to say anything can truly happen and could happen, I think history has dictated that it can, because I'll take you back. We have seen the return to the rings from guys like Edge and Christian. We've seen AJ Styles debut in these matches. We saw Ric Flair come in and become WWF champion at one point. We have seen John Cena return after 4 months of an injury, which was supposed to take him, I believe, 9 to 10. So the Royal Rumble has been used as a platform of really, really just making your jaw drop in oh my God moments. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to do. And this is, from what I understand, like really the first one in a real crowd again. Like last year was kind of like, I believe that was like, it wasn't in front of a real crowd.
I think we were still on the Thunderdome last year, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't until WrestleMania that they actually brought fans back in for the first time in quite some time. The year previous to that, though, was when didn't Drew McIntyre win? And that would have been in front of a normal crowd right before all shut down. So I think we've only had one Royal Rumble not in front of a live crowd. And it's nice to finally have it back because those pops are what make the Royal Rumble so fun.
Yeah, and it just happened, I think it was like the January of 2020, and then everything gets hit, boom, all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, like it just seems like such a long time ago where Drew McIntyre won the Royal Rumble match. So it's really interesting to see, what they're going to do for the shock and awe factor of the Royal Rumble. And then now talking about the women's, does it really hurt the match that they've announced so many new competitors? Say like returning like the Litas, the Summer Rays, the Nikki Bellas, Mickey James is like, how much of a shock would that have been had that not been told prior?
But at the same time, it makes me wonder, do they still have an ace up their sleeve for the women's card there too? So, I mean, if you're willing to allow that much to be said just to get the attention, now, don't get me wrong, if they don't have any other big surprises, they've done enough by drawing enough attention using names like Mickey James, for example, because we're all talking about it. We're all paying attention to it. We all want to see the card. We all have that what could happen factor about us now, that it could be anybody. It could also be nobody at the same time. It could be people that are on the roster that we haven't seen for a while, people from NXT getting that opportunity in there. But at the same time, we could see some other surprises. Like it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility to maybe see a Trish Stratus come in for for a spot in the Royal Rumble or something like that. There's a lot of people that could still be drawn from. One I want to mention for the men's Rumble, especially since we don't have very many names, and the amount of teasing that's been done over on SmackDown recently. Could we see, with this Forbidden Door open, an appearance from Jon Moxley, considering how much Shield talk has been going on between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns right now?
You know what? This is one where I think I really couldn't tell you. I don't know if there's really anything going on with WWE and AEW. I think that would be a much bigger surprise than WWE doing something with Impact, just because we have never really seen a direct relationship between WWE and AEW in the sense of talent exchanging of any sort. Whereas we have seen this in the past with Impact. If people forget, WWE wanted to bring Ric Flair into the Hall of Fame. He was contracted by Impact. So then not only did they bring him in for the induction, but they also lent Christian Cage, Christian at the time, return as Christian Cage for one night, and I believe it was the Slammiversary, and he was actually the Intercontinental Champion at that point. So we saw that. To me, this is the one that I think we're going to see. To me, I think one of the big ones is I don't think this is a one-time deal with Mickie James.
No.
But to answer your question, I don't know if we're going to see Mox in there. It's very interesting that he actually was referred to Mox again by Seth Rollins on SmackDown. And it wasn't Dean Ambrose. It was Moxley. So it was just a very interesting decision to use the name that he's currently going under and not the character that he was in the realm of WWE. All I know is I like it because when people are talking about going back and using history to help like a storyline, this is the times where I'm like, okay, cool. Like WWE, you're finally doing little things correct of talking about what you've done in the past and not, blurring it out on a promo package and be like, oh, look, they're easily trying just to show Shield footage to where John Moxley, Dean Ambrose isn't really shown. So it's very interesting that he did that. Like, what do you think about this whole thing?
I mean, it's got me interested, and that's what I love about it. And again, kudos to WWE for starting to do it. I mean, it's showing a side of them we haven't seen in such a long time, where they're kind of playing nice with other companies, whether it is just mentioning their existence and some of the people working for them, and using some of that to build that story. Again, I haven't been this intrigued with pro wrestling for quite some time, and a lot of that, I'll swear it's the pandemic. The pandemic era of wrestling is almost a complete write-off for me because there was almost nothing worth watching during that time. But now finally companies are starting to get it, and especially WWE, which is great to see from them, starting to acknowledge these things, say these things, and tease us with it. Whether Moxley shows up at the Royal Rumble now is irrelevant because they've got us talking about it from just using the name a couple times on SmackDown.
Perfect timing, by the way.
Yeah.
To where, Ecto guy, you're late? All right. I think there might be a meeting with you later.
We saved you a seat, though.
Huh?
We saved him a seat, though. Come on in.
I know. Oh, I know. How dare you? But no, I think, and that's kind of what I like about this time of the year too. It's just the fact that they're doing so many things to make your head go every single way. And as Astrid said in the chat, guys like Corey Graves have been cleared to wrestle again. It'd be very cool to see him in the Royal Rumble match. And two, it just seems really funny with the Ring of Honor shutting down and the timeline of that now. Are we primed to see anybody in Ring of Honor, like say a Jonathan Gresham, who could do a one-night appearance at the Rumble and things like this? It's very, very interesting to see what WWE can do. And then also, might not be the cup of tea everybody likes to listen to, but X-Pac has also referenced that he is now clear to return to the ring again. Could we not see X-Pac, who is a part of the NWO edition coverage of the now WWE 2K22 game, which I want to highlight WWE for releasing this on March 11th, my birthday, by the way. So thank you. But again, like he's on the cover of the NWO Deluxe Edition of that. So maybe we see him in there and it's like a promotional thing. But how cool would it be if X-Pac was in there and we saw maybe X-Pac kind of mix it up with, say, somebody from maybe like a Sami Zayn, or maybe we see somebody like a Carmelo Hayes in the Rumble, and then that.
I knew you were going with that comment next.
Well, I mean, it was the most recent comment. Of all the comments we've had, that was the most recent.
Hey, if Danhausen's going in, then I swear that Warhorse is going in.
I mean, but that could be an interesting. Well, what happens if we see like maybe a PCO come back? Maybe we see PCO bring back the old Quebecer gimmick for one night.
Let's go for it.
But I mean, I was watching a little bit of old Rumbles in the past, and just seems like a one or two nostalgic acts is really not that bad, and it's actually very much appreciated, especially if a good crowd. Like seeing Roddy Piper and Jimmy Snuka one year was actually kind of cool. Didn't really take away from the plan of that Royal Rumble, but it really enhanced the moments of it, and it was kind of cool to see. Is there any nostalgic acts you would like to see in the Royal Rumble matches, whether it's the men or the women?
That's a really good one. I mean, they've already announced Lita for the women, so I mean, already you've got a good one over there. Nostalgia acts for the men. I'm just trying to think who would really give me a good pop there that is available today, kind of thing. I mean, I think X-Pac's a great option. I think there's a guy that I would love to see get in there. Other guys, I think that's just getting to that point where maybe it's just not necessary, but I'm overthinking this. I can't think of a guy off the top of my head that I think isn't already going to be involved in some way that I want in there.
I'm going to answer this one. As Turnbuckle Studios, it's interesting that 2K has listed X-Pac as 6. Yes, it is. But the only time X-Pac, or the artist known as X-Pac, was in the NWO with both Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan was in WCW, where he was 6. So the package involves all 4 of them. Therefore, he is 6. He is not X-Pac. But I'm sure a downloadable X-Pac version of the character will probably be part of that.
Please
do we think... So this is actually kind of one I wanted to get to, because it is rumored that Taker actually will be at the pay-per-view itself.
Oh, please. No.
I'm sorry. One of the things I'm hoping is that he actually is there to help kind of run the show from a backstage thing.
That I'm okay with.
Having a guy like Undertaker there to kind of be kind of like, I don't want to say the new Pat Patterson, but oh my God, if he is the next Pat Patterson, if I'm a backstage thing, that'd actually be very good for WWE. If there's one person, Vince would just say, I'm going to do this. And then a guy like Pat Patterson would say, Vince, you're dumb. Don't do that. And he's like, okay, Pat. Yeah, you're right. I think Mark Calloway is that perfect guy too. I think Vince listens to him in the same realm. So it'd be really cool to see if a guy like Undertaker, Mark Calloway, is there to help with that end of the I don't know, just that end of the production stuff.
Yeah, and I think you need that level of experience back there, that somebody that can communicate between management and the actual talent themselves. And I think obviously from what we know of the Undertaker, aka Mark Calloway, we know that he is that type of leader, or somebody that Vince trusts. While at the same time, I don't think there's one person that ever steps foot in a wrestling ring that wouldn't be, just in their all to be able to work under the guidance of somebody, the talent level of Mark Calloway, the Undertaker. So that would be excellent. As for him showing up in the Rumble, I say please don't, because I mean, this legacy of the Undertaker for me is getting murdered every time that he steps in a pro wrestling ring anymore. He was one of those defining characters that was so good at keeping kayfabe alive and did so well for so many years that at the point of hanging up the hat should have been the point of hanging up the hat. I don't want to see him keep coming back and, killing off that legacy, that mythology that I felt that the Undertaker had. Enough's enough with the Undertaker character inside a professional wrestling ring. He's done everything he can do for us as pro wrestling fans on that level. We need him in a guidance spot backstage between management and the talent.
Yeah, and I know in the past Undertaker has gone on shows saying that one of the guys that he worked alongside a lot of in the developmental stages was Omos, and that he made sure that like he worked a little bit with Omos, like helping him kind of understand what it's like to be a big guy in pro wrestling, like just the little nuances that comes with it, whether it's movement, whether it's footwork, things like that, which I always thought was really cool. I wonder if that maybe Taker's there to help, a guy like Walter Gunther kind of be more associated with kind of I don't want to say the American style because I don't want to typecast it, but more that entertainment style that WWE does and is known for, and helping them kind of adapt a little bit more that way, because we all know how good of a professional wrestler Gunther Walter is, but how can he relate that to what the WWE style, therefore the entertainment aspect would be? And a guy like Undertaker really still knows that, how to adapt and that difference, how to read a crowd. That's the one thing that, like, man, it's such a next level type of thing to read the crowd and adapt to a story on the fly. And guys like him, Eddie Guerrero, and John Cena are some of the best that we've ever seen in pro wrestling doing that. So if he's there just to pass his knowledge down, I mean, man, how amazing would it be if you're going to work and you're getting to, just look at the minds of Shawn Michaels and Undertaker, and you're just like, yep, this is work now. Like, how cool of a job would that be?
It would be really cool. And can you imagine if Undertaker was there to guide a guy like Gunther, and eventually we got pure wrestling mixed with entertainment, Gunther, and a new streak developed at WrestleMania, and not one necessarily the same as the Undertaker's, but can you imagine the pure wrestling streak of Gunther, who could step up and try to out wrestle this beast of a man every single year at WrestleMania and go on an absolute tear every single year against some of the absolute best that pro wrestling can throw at him?
Yeah, I'm going to throw you one. What happens if we weren't to the nostalgic acts? I'll do a very current nostalgic act. What happens if we're seeing a guy like Gunther in the Royal Rumble match, and then all of a sudden we're getting John Cena come back? And maybe we get John Cena versus Gunther at WrestleMania.
That was quite an interesting thought right there, too. And we know John Cena just recently went on television and said to Ellen he's not done with WWE. We have not seen the last of his run with the company. And you almost think that when he starts saying that on television currently, that there might be plans for a John Cena appearance, not only at the Royal Rumble, but for this year's WrestleMania as well, too. So maybe there is a plan in the works there.
Yeah. To me, it's a little bit in left field of an idea, which many people like. It's WWE. They won't get creative like that. But I mean, you never know. WrestleMania is the show of the immortals. And when I'm thinking of immortal talent, I mean, I'm definitely looking at the big, colossal guys in there. I'm looking at your, Bobby Lashley's, your Brock Lesnar's, and I'm looking at Walter, now known as Gunther. So we'll see. We'll just see. Any dark horses you have to win the Rumbles? And then we'll kind of transition to something else.
It's interesting you say that too, because there was a comment brought up a long time ago in the chat here that caught my attention about AJ Styles winning the Royal Rumble. And AJ Styles has to be a dark horse for everything, because he's got to be one of the most reliable guys that's been there in the past few years, because he's out there guiding guys like Omos in a tag team. He's out there capable of going toe-to-toe with the best in the ring and being a world champion and carrying that belt with absolute dignity and pride as well too. AJ Styles is one of those guys that Vince McMahon can continuously rely on and stuff like that. And at the last minute, if all of a sudden anything changes, we could end up with people ill, people injured, anything like that. AJ Styles is able to come in at the last minute and get the job done. By the way, Ryan Basser69, howdy, brother. Thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was going to, because one of the things that I'm kind of used to now is WWE kind of having guys fly under the radar going into the Royal Rumble only for them to win. And I kind of use Shinsuke Nakamura as a prime example of recent years about this one. And now I'm looking at like a guy like AJ Styles, who kind of just did the perennial perennial. Okay, can you help out this guy, and can you do this solid for this guy, and then we'll kind of give you this opportunity in the future. And he did a lot to help Omos. He worked with him for a good year, plus with Omos helping develop him and getting him kind of more acclimated to being a star. And then we saw him go into the NXT 2.0, working with Grayson Waller and kind of helping with him. Mm-hmm. So eventually now I think, we have probably one more and one last title run with AJ Styles before he decides to kind of go to that next chapter in his career, I think. So,
and that's a great way to bring up something else as well too that we were talking about before we went on live on the air today, and we talked heavily back before when Kevin Owens re-signed about the potential of him as a star and winning the Royal Rumble. But then you got a dark horse like Sami Zayn, who's been pushed quite well as of late in the WWE. And you mentioned earlier before we went on the show, Sami Zayn now re-signed with the WWE. There's got to be some things that he wanted within that contract for re-signing as well too, and some of them had to be about where they're going with him as a development.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's very interesting to look at guys like Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn, AJ Styles. Another one I'm going to give you a shout out. Watch for possibly the returning Elias in the Royal Rumble match.
Yeah.
And I do think that when he comes back, he is going to make a statement. They're not going to do that. Another guy I'm thinking that could actually be a dark horse to win is a guy named Finn Balor. Because again, he is not somebody that we're talking a lot of, and he is one big win away from being right back in that. And then also look for the Rey Mysterio, who's the cover guy for WWE 2K22 to have a decent showing. And then by association, have Dominic Mysterio, have Austin Theory. I think you have a good group of guys to look out for in this year. The dark horse is really there. And then I know in the chat we had comments about the women's. I still think Bayley is my dark horse to win the Royal Rumble this year for the women.
I think I want Bayley to win, overall. I think that would be the best move. I think nobody is quite remembering that Bayley's sitting there waiting to come back and stuff like that. Well, I mean, maybe some people are, but there's a lot of people that might have forgotten. They haven't mentioned her name coming back. She could be that John Cena level surprise that comes in towards the end of the Women's Rumble, cleans house, picks up that win, and what a fantastic opportunity. Especially now, here's the question: are we going to see Bayley versus Charlotte or Bayley versus Big Time Bex come WrestleMania time if that were to happen?
I'm going to say this: we have never seen the feud of Becky Lynch versus Bayley on the main roster, and it is amazing to see now with between the 4 horsewomen. The fact that we still have yet a fresh match that we have not seen. So it's to me just insane that they've been on the main roster for this long and we have yet to see a feud between Becky Lynch and Bayley. And I think that is so refreshing moving towards WrestleMania. And I think this is the time where WWE got it right when Triple H came back and he was a babyface. He was a heel when he got hurt, came back as a babyface. They missed the boat on Seth Rollins coming back and making him pure babyface. And I think this is going to be the scenario with Bayley. I think when she comes back, she is going to be so over with that audience and just get one of the biggest pops of the night. I really admit that. The only other pop is when I honestly, and I'm predicting this now, is when Mickie James throws Charlotte over the top rope.
It's either got to be her or Lita. And I almost say I disagree with you on this one just because I think with the way they're going right now, I could see Lita doing it unless we have Charlotte throw Lita over. Mickie were to dump Charlotte over and then the fight between Lita and Charlotte continues on the outside. I really think that they might be teasing the idea that we're getting Lita and Charlotte at WrestleMania.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that we might even see Knockouts champion against SmackDown champion at WrestleMania. And you're asking me about Jon Moxley and how funny you think it is about WWE name dropping the Moxley thing. I take that with the same grain of salt, and I throw it to the Mickie James reference where they're flat out acknowledging her as the Knockouts champion on the WWE programming. And in an interview, Mickie James has said that she plans on using Hardcore Country as a theme which is really interesting. And she does not know if she's using the title or if she will and coming out. But if that's a thing, and if we're actually seeing that championship on WWE TV, I mean, all bets are off at that point now on, what the WrestleMania plans are. All I know is I'm intrigued. If I see that perception, if I see the Knockouts World Champion from Impact Wrestling at the Royal Rumble, all right, I'm invested in this Forbidden Door because they're going all in on it.
They really are. And, kudos to them, because again, this is what makes this exciting and why we've been able to go on about this, because there's just so much debate. And I think this is what I used to love about the Royal Rumble match back in the day. As a kid, I used to get excited. I know that our good friend with the most awesome name in the chat here today mentioned earlier about being a fan, going to matches in 1978, 79 and stuff like that, and not having the internet to ruin things. You didn't have the dirt sheets and stuff. And I remember watching in the 90s, and it was not only that, it was like if you didn't get to actually watch the pay-per-view because they weren't so accessible back then, you had to wait an entire week till you got to WWF Superstars on Saturday to see highlights of what happened in the Royal Rumble match, or you had to wait for your WWF magazine to come in the mail that month to describe to you exactly what happened in the Royal Rumble match. And then you'd go down to your local video store 3 months later and rent the Coliseum home video Royal Rumble so that you could finally watch it 3 months after it actually happened. But I digress. It's the most excited I've been for a Royal Rumble in a long time, because it can go any direction. And I like when I don't know the direction that it's going, because then the fan in me comes out to its absolute max. And that's what I'm going to be next weekend. I am going to be the biggest fanboy watching this Royal Rumble that I've been in years.
Yeah. You know what I'm excited about? Having cleanly groomed genitals. And I have those because of Manscaped. And thankfully at manscaped.com, you can get a Lawnmower 4.0, a nice little comfortable t-shirt, some underwear, a good little package. If you go to manscaped.com and use the promo code Love Wrestling to get 20% off your current order and get free shipping. So make sure you go to manscaped.com.
It's almost as smooth as what my face looks right here.
Yeah, mine is not. I need this. I get ID'd a lot less when I have this, apparently. So I'm a big fan of that.
But in also big shout out to the new Love Wrestling t-shirts, and again the new Natural Astrid t-shirt that you can also get as part of being a Love Wrestling fan. Show your love for us by buying all our merchandise and showing it off each and every week here at whatamaneuver.net collections/love-wrestling CA. But I throw in that extra plug there because we're all about the plugs. I mean, we could also mention that RK Athletics also a sponsor, but you seem to have a bit of an issue with RK.
Oh, I don't have an issue anymore. I mean, I beat them, and then I went on to bigger and better things. Just happened to, see it right here. So, I mean, but also too, like if you're under the assumption, I'd be like, oh, okay. I love the water maneuver. I love the Manscaped, but what else do you guys have going on? Well, we have an amazing amount of things coming up, and if you follow this ticker down, you can check it out on all of our platforms, the Facebooks, the YouTubes, but we also have a little bit of a graphic here that I will show you in just a second about what all we have coming up. And it's easy. On Monday, we have the Legacy of featuring, it looks like Britt Baker on here. And then, that is tonight, not Monday. Monday, we do have the Poetry of a Promo hosted by the Wordsmith. And he's talking a little bit Bret Hart. And then we also have footage from the Changing the Game going on between the Mitch Clark and the Leo London, a friend of the show. We also have Love Wrestling Reacts to the World of GCW. On Tuesday, we have a double shot of Power Out and NXT, and special guest Coda Holiday is going to appear. And then on Thursday, we have Between Two Beards with Billy Starks as a guest. And then we also have a championship edition of Quizplex going on. And then we also on Friday have Smart and Friends featuring Santana Jackson. And then if you are not bored by any of the means, go check out the Natural Astrid on Astrid Asks, where she has hosts our guest Ruby Reyes. And then we also have debuting shows like The Friend and Foe with our friend Cody Duffo. Make sure you check out The Friend and Foe show. I believe that's airing on Wednesday. I might be wrong. Then we also have other great shows like obviously Sunday Brunch. We have the POS show come next week in regards to the Royal Rumble. We have Turnbuckle Talk, Turnbuckle Rewind, and just a plethora of great shows. Make sure you check that out. By no means are we done right now, but what I am done with is with all
the plugs.
So yeah,
I
finally not bad for a guy who got 5 minutes. Got out of bed.
That's right. See, we got all the boss's notes. We got them in. Now we can just chill, relax, talk whatever we want. Now the bosses are off our backs. Oh, look at this. I think we missed something there. Ectoguy87, our good friend Alex, says that Love Wrestling Figures returns this Saturday as well, too. So tune in to the newest edition of Love Wrestling Figures with our main man, Alex.
I didn't miss it. I just wanted him to promote his own stuff. I mean, since he was late, I figured I'd give him an opportunity. But
the Legend Summer
Rae tossing out several stars and solidify the moniker and silencing the haters.
That might be the first time I've ever heard a Legend Summer Rae used in the same sentence. But sorry, nothing against Summer Rae. I'm being mean now. But yeah, I don't know. I think Summer Rae's there for fun. I mean, and again, it's a great opportunity for her. It's a great opportunity for them to bring back a name that they've worked with in the past, and she'll have a good time. She's not winning any Royal Rumbles and she's not breaking any records, but she's there to have a good time, and we're going to have a good time seeing her back out there.
Yeah, and like it's like with all these stars like Kelly and Michelle McCool, the Bellas. I mean, to me, I'm wondering if we're going to set up Bellas against Carmella and Zelina Vega for the tag titles at WrestleMania. I have a good feeling that's something we're probably getting primed to do. So then this is another reason why I like the Royal Rumbles is we get a little bit more of a direction of what to expect to the road to WrestleMania. Because for me, like the road to WrestleMania usually always starts at the Royal Rumble. I don't know about you, but that's kind of how I've always dictated the Royal Rumble.
It does, but they threw a roadblock at us this week because we didn't think the Elimination Chamber was happening, but it's happening in Saudi Arabia, according to the announcement.
Yeah, we're going to leave all the jokes aside, but I mean, the one thing I am going to say, though, how annoying would it be to bring that structure all the way over to Saudi Arabia? That might be one of the most type jobs. If you're like, oh yeah, by the way, you got to set up this structure in Saudi Arabia. And it's like, man, just bringing that structure on a jet plane, flying that over, like, come on.
They'll probably just buy a new one while they're down there or something like that. I mean,
just get them to make you a new one and leave it there.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I hate the Elimination Chamber being right in between WrestleMania and Royal Rumble, personally. I think that it's just unnecessary. I hate there being another pay-per-view premier live event that's in between the two. I wish it was Royal Rumble, then WrestleMania. The build with the television shows should be enough. Yeah, I leave the Elimination Chamber for somewhere else down the road. I think that they could have done without it personally. I think that they try to go with too many changes prior to WrestleMania and really don't build strong for WrestleMania as a result. So that's the only reason I wouldn't be looking forward to it. Other than that, I mean, I don't have a problem with the chamber match itself. It can be a whole lot of fun. I just really wish that they'd wait till after March to do it.
Yeah. See, I'm a fan of the Elimination Chamber match. I like it better as its own entity and not its own show.
Yeah.
But I actually would prefer to be the first pay-per-view from WrestleMania, just so we don't get that annoying WrestleMania rematch just weeks after WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
It's that the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania where the champion is like, oh my God, like whether they just won the title or they're just retain the title, it's like, what's next? And you get this amazing amount of people saying, oh, I want next shot, or I'm not done with you. What are we going to do? Okay, you're going to fight inside the Elimination Chamber. And I just think that like that's an interesting way. And then use that match to kind of dictate kind of your next feuds and things like that, whether you got person A eliminating person B, person C pins the champion, or, you know, what have you, and just kind of go that route. I think that's kind of something I think WWE has kind of failed to do lately in Elimination Chamber matches, is use that as a platform to dictate a couple storylines moving
I
forward.
think they could go one better. And like, if you're going right after WrestleMania, what you do is you have whoever's the champion guaranteed into the Elimination Chamber. You have whoever they wrestled at WrestleMania as a second person guaranteed to be in the chamber, and the other four determined by a short tournament of sorts. You could have 8 competitors put down for a tournament, ends up down to 4, right? Or qualifying matches, I guess. I say a tournament, but these would be qualifying matches. Have the qualifying matches to get the other 4 spots into the Elimination Chamber itself. Allows them to build a lot of storyline with the guys who really worked hard to, guys and girls, sorry, but both worked hard to get into there. And then there's that much more story to develop from it and stuff like that too. And again, who knows what other stories could build from that whole thing. Somebody might have cheated to qualify their way in, and it starts a feud with whoever they screwed out of that Elimination Chamber possibility and stuff too. It really leaves the door open to tell a lot more story, and I think that would make it more interesting. Again, I think tossing it right in between these 2 large events like this takes away from the fun factor of the Elimination Chamber, and it really kind of goes, well, it's taking a bit of a dent out of WrestleMania in a sense for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know the one thing WWE definitely does try to do with WrestleMania is make it feel like a spectacle of a show. And the one thing they definitely do with Saudi Arabia shows is try to make it look like a spectacle of a show. So it's going to be very interesting on how many spectacles we can see in, within weeks. Do you know the date of the Elimination Chamber?
Jeez, I don't know. Like,
I mean, in the chat, if anybody knows, let me know.
Yeah, bring it on up. I know it's coming up in February. I just don't know exact date just yet.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on WWE, the way doing more Saturday shows? This Saturday coming up on the 29th is the date of the Royal Rumble. It is no longer on a Sunday. What are your thoughts on WWE now using more Saturday type pay-per-views instead of just going with Sundays?
Well, for me, it's absolutely brilliant because I work on a Monday. So it's for me, it's absolutely perfect because I can stay up late if I can make it, and I don't have to feel guilty about it the next day. It's been tough the older I get to try to stay up on a Sunday night and make it all the way to that main event without starting to get a little bit tired and sleepy, because I know that I've got to get up early the next morning. And I fight it. I fight it quite well on Sunday nights, but hearing that there's going to be more of these Saturday events, it's like, sweet. I can get in there. I can have a drink. I can watch this, have some fun, lay back, and just not worry about it. So it should be a lot of fun. Interesting.
So, February 19th, the day of the Elimination Chamber.
Saturday as well, too, this time. Like, usually those ones happen during the week, but they're going with a Saturday show this time around, too. So.
I love Saturdays against to it. Well, and then that's just good. And I wonder if that's a general consensus now. What I kind of always loved about the Sundays as a kid was the show happens and the very next night you have Raw. So if you're going to school and you have friends that love wrestling, pun intended, then it's always cool to talk about it, whether it's at lunch hour, at recess, or in class before and after you get in trouble about getting caught talking about pro wrestling during class. May have happened a few hundred times with me. But to me, it always made the Monday Night Raw must watch. And now you're kind of adding that day in. I don't know. To me, it's really curious. It's making me. I think I might take away the mystique if they did it, say, one night for WrestleMania, and you get to take the mystique out of the Raw after WrestleMania, because I always love that next night kind of feel. But I also think moving forward, especially if we're doing shows like Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia, you're given that kind of timeline and a date for everyone to kind of come back home, and you're giving them a little bit of a grace period, so to speak. And it's nice from a fan standpoint as well.
So you're talking about Sundays and having the Mondays nights the next day. I mean, you're talking luxury there. When I started watching wrestling, you'd watch the pay-per-view on Sunday and have to wait till Saturday because we didn't have the luxury of Monday Night Raw until 1993. So for all you youngins out there that don't remember the start of Monday Night Raw as an option for pro wrestling during the week, we waited all week until Saturday to watch WWF Superstars on Saturday mornings to find out all the latest from what happened after the pay-per-views.
To be fair, I started off that way as well, but I mean, that was like in my like more teens that I've,
Yeah, and I mean, again, I didn't know people so much back then. Like when I was a kid, there wasn't as many people talking about pro wrestling at school. So especially out here in Saskatchewan, it was just dry for that. But when the Attitude Era broke out and WCW was at its hottest, of course, everybody wanted to be a pro wrestling fan. All of a sudden, you could go talk about it at school the next Monday and stuff like that and everything. So it became more fun. But yeah, I mean, again, I joke about being a wrestling fan back when we didn't have Monday Night Raw and having to wait that long period of time. But then again, we used to wait so long for a big pay-per-view match as well too. Like we'd go in between. We had the big four at first. I mean, it was Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, and that's all we had until they inserted King of the Ring in there for a few years.
Yeah. You know what else we waited a long time for? The return of Jon Moxley, and we saw that this week on Dynamite.
We did.
And it's very amazing what not only a few months of being sober, which, by the way, congratulations to Jon Moxley, just from a recovery standpoint and all of that. Very, very high props, and very happy to see a guy like him, recover and get the help that he needed. Takes the time to get the help. Very important message that he sent, but also coming back, and he looks more fresh, more young, just more healthy than normal. But we also saw a teaser between him and Bryan Danielson at the end of that, leading towards a potential Bryan Danielson-Jon Moxley match. What are your thoughts about this? Because imagine a show where you have Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson, but you also have CM Punk against MJF. I mean, that's going to be quite the loaded card.
Yeah, it really would be. Why not? I mean, Danielson can fight just about anybody at this point, and I'm going to get excited about it because he's just on a tear right now, and I love everything he's been doing. Mox did look quite healthy, and again, congratulations to him for getting clean. Addiction is no joke, so anybody out there that might be fighting with addiction problems and stuff like that, reach out, get the help that you require, because too many people have been lost to addiction problems before, so definitely get the help that you need, and I'm glad that Mox was able to get the help that he needs as well, too. Glad to see him looking fresh, and a fresh match between him and Danielson just could be exactly what the doctor ordered. I'm looking forward to that. And again, like you say, on a pay-per-view card with CM Punk and MJF and a few of the other things that they've got going on right now, they really could hit a knockout, like from start to finish, top down wrestling card here this year where everybody's going to be talking about it.
Yeah, and just before we get that, I just want to highlight one thing. It also helps with European fans, and they don't watch on Mondays. So Asher just kind of also said, not everyone is also in the same deal as we are of getting to watch things on the time.
Yeah, same with our good friends from Australia as well too. Yeah, because they'd be 16 hours ahead. So I mean, they're watching the next morning kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. They're in the future. They've got all.
They are the spoilers. But yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about AEW because I don't know if you've missed it, but the Rock and Roll Express and FTR just had a tag match, and just seeing the generational difference between there, but also just how cool it is to see that of a match. Just the dynamicness of what that tag match could bring, the psychology. I'm a big fan of tag wrestling, obviously, one half of RCW Tag Team Champions. But that's nor here nor there. But it's a thing. Deal with it. But how cool
in Edmonton, Alberta.
Yeah. What do you think about seeing these kind of matches now? Because it's not every day that we get to really see not only the Rock and Roll Express, but we're seeing them with one of the better suited tag teams in FTR. And this only helps FTR stock moving forward. And then they were primed to possibly feud with the Briscoes in AEW. We'll wait on that one. But what's your kind of thought process in the tag team division right now?
I love anything that they can do with FTR that gives them that chance to work with people that they admire as well too. I mean, it's wonderful. The Rock and Roll Express are I mean, they are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Anybody who didn't get an opportunity to follow them should go back and watch some of their matches. I mean, the tag team excellence, feuds that they had with, say the Midnight Express. I mean, that's what defined tag team wrestling back in the territory days. So getting FTR in there against a team that they clearly admire, and they try to, not necessarily do exactly like the Rock and Roll Express, but it's teams of that time frame that FTR grew up watching and studying and getting familiar with. So they understand just exactly how to work those types of matches, and that's great that they get that opportunity to get in there. It really does wonders for the tag division and stuff like that. It helps boost FTR up a little bit as well too, while getting them prepared for, like you said, that inevitable like slaughterhouse of a match that we're going to get against the Briscoe brothers down the road.
Agreed. I mean, we are the Sunday Brunchers. I'm going to just put that as a thing. Maybe we get that as a shirt on What a Maneuver.
We're changing the game here on Sunday Brunch.
Right. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of seeing highlighted tag team wrestling. I think this is something that the wrestling as a whole needs more of. They need more emphasis on the tag team division, on just like good quality tag team wrestling. And because of that, I think you get that variety in pro wrestling. I don't know about you, but you're going to have a show with 8 matches in. If it's all singles matches, I'm bored. So having that sprinkle, whether it's a tag match here or there, or having a women's match, just having that variety kind of makes everything so much more completed in terms of my experience as a fan. Also, I love being in a tag match. I think the dynamic is just so different. You have more people that you can kind of use in that scenario. It's such a great thing. So seeing a nostalgic match, kind of like Rock and Roll Express versus FTR, I think is such a cool thing for any type of wrestling fan, whether it's modern or if it's, the wrestling fan from the 80s and from the other generations past, and just seeing that come together. And that's why I don't know about you, but I like the fact that, when we transcend that to, say WWE, kind of the counterpoint and the counterparts of AEW, where tag team wrestling is something that they just kind of don't seem to, push as well as other companies do. Even though we have a tag team like the Usos, we have what I think is one of the coolest dynamics in a father-son tag team in Rey and Dominic Mysterio. We're seeing a lot of push-together tag teams out of that, as we saw with Matt Riddle and Randy Orton, and then now with Chad Gable and Otis. What are kind of your thoughts on how to fix tag team wrestling within WWE? What do you think is their number one thing they could do with tag team wrestling? And is there a team that they have that's like, what, if we were to unify the tag titles, what one team do you think is the best team for that? And what team do you think is the best counter?
I mean, if I'm going to go for the team for unifying the titles, I got to go with the Usos. I mean, they are probably one of the best things they got going over there. It fits well with the bloodline. I think it's just the smart move for them on a right away type movement. To fix the entire tag team division, they need to start taking it seriously. They need to stop throwing teams together too much. It works sometimes, but they do it a lot. They need to step back and say, like, who do we got? Like, you're right. Father and son, Ray and Dominic would be a perfect combination. Somebody earlier said about what if we had a Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn tag run. Again, makes sense. These two guys, best of friends. They've had a lot of history together. That team can come in and be a tag team. It could be very dominant and it could work really well. Again, you've got the Usos. You've got the New Day there. We've got the Viking Raiders or War Raiders or whatever they're calling them this week. That could be good if they knew how to utilize them properly and take them seriously. There are a lot of great tag team talents just sitting there in WWE ready to be used, but they need to promote it right, treat it right. They need to stop making it kind of the sideshow. Like, I mean, it's almost like Vince has turned the tag matches on his program into the pee break matches. And that's what we need to stop doing. We need people to be interested in it. And they're interested in it when they get a good match out of the Usos and the New Day. So why not say, hey, next tag team's going out there. You saw what they did. Go tear the house down. Go do it. Go make these people remember you for what you do. And that's how you get the tag team division talking again in WWE.
Yeah. And I think too, like you kind of hit the nail on the head, commitment. And that's just it. And you got to let things see through. The one thing, and kind of the reason why I wanted to say that, because I tie it into WWE apparently unhappy with how NXT 2.0 has been. And it's one of those things where I kind of look at it in a similar fashion. If you're wanting to make all these cuts, make all these changes with the Triple H's vision of what NXT could have been, and go in a complete different one, you have to understand that there's going to be peaks and low points in the whole thing. So be patient with the process of it. And I don't think there's a quick fix with the tag division, because you're going to see those peaks. They're going to see those lows. So just have a little bit of patience if you want to do these things. But again, like making these things a primary focus of your show and having that consistently done and using the right people, that I believe is the right way of doing it. But going to that NXT thing, is there any changes that you would make directly about NXT 2.0? Is there something that you want to see changed from that? Because I think we're now far away from the black and gold brand. I think that's a distant thing.
Yeah.
So if they want to continue on this developmental phase of NXT, like what's the next step if they're unhappy with the current product?
You know, is there anything to change other than just to continue to believe in the people that you have and stuff like that too? Like, I mean, you've already made your moves, you've made your bed, you've picked your color scheme, and obviously we could sit here all day and talk about how the new logo was ugly as hell and they could have done something better about that. But there was positive changes to be had. They obviously want to grow some homegrown talent, which I love to see. They're really giving some opportunities to some brand new names there that we haven't seen. So don't change that at all. Don't just, take what you have there and invest in them and believe in them and guide them and bring in the right people. You said like Shawn Michaels is back there for guidance. An Undertaker would be brilliant back there to guide new people into this type of world and stuff like that. Just have the right people in place and believe in the talent that you have so that you can continue to start to build this brand that you're wanting to build, and eventually have these new modern day stars that they themselves are able to say, hey, look, we put this together.
Yeah. And another name like I'll even throw out, and we've seen him physically on the show, is AJ Styles. He's said too in the past that he wouldn't be against working backstage as a producer after his in-ring career is done. If you're able to get that guy and his wealth of knowledge, and then even maybe asking guys like Edge to kind of not so much go down, but like also just, hey, like, would you be okay going down there? We've seen it in the past. And I still think to this day, this is where WWE screwed up with letting Christian go. I thought he would have been a real delight on the NXT scale. But I think that's just it. Like, you got to run your course. You got to stick with it. You got to make sure that you're giving these kids the true time to develop. And then when it's time, bring them up and put them in positions to succeed.
Yeah. And sorry, I was just kind of reading the comment that just came up there as well too, coming up with tag team wrestling and the Royal Rumble with the Briscoe brothers showing up. It's an interesting thought. I don't see it happening. I know that from what I understand, WWE has tried multiple times to get the Briscoe brothers over there before and stuff like that, and they haven't been successful yet. So I mean, do the Briscoes really bother to show up as much as they might be tempted by that match at WrestleMania with the Usos? I just don't know if that is in our foreseeable future. I think the Briscoes are looking more forward to that matchup with FTR, as so are the rest of us that are fans of tag team wrestling.
Yeah, and just to tie on that last one, we saw on SmackDown, by the way, that Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens defeated the tag team, the Usos, to ensure that the Usos are barred or banned from the ring at the Royal Rumble match. Kind of make this the last conversation piece for brunch today, but what are the chances of seeing Solo Sikoa making his debut on the main roster and helping Roman Reigns retain the championship?
I'd be all for it. I mean, I like this kid. Obviously, I like this kid. I mean, he's got that same look. He's part of the bloodline. He's fantastic. Yeah, I think this would be a great move to bring him in as part of the bloodline story. And with the Usos being barred, it's like, okay, well, maybe he's barred, but it doesn't mean we don't have a plethora of other bloodline family members waiting in the wings. Again, with that forbidden door open, could they have reached out to Jacob Fatu as well too? I don't know what the complications with MLW and WWE going on, if that would be a possibility, but it would be cool because Jacob Fatu this week actually gave an interview on MLW where he brought up, and I'm telling you, the whole conversation was him talking about family and about bloodline, and he kept mentioning it many times that he wasn't even interested in professional wrestling until he saw his brothers or cousins, the Usos, debut for the first time. And then he's talking about his other cousins, obviously Solo Sikoa, calling him up and talking to him and trying to get him into it. And that's what drew him into the professional wrestling world in the first place. He was the reluctant member of the bloodline to ever join up. And now he's become extremely good. And he goes on to talk about growing up at the family and going over to Uncle Rikishi's house and them having a trampoline and a pool set up and using that to learn how to do their moonsaults and stuff like that. He actually learned that from the Usos themselves, who had learned that from being in the backyard, having that trampoline and that pool, and they would bounce from the trampoline into the pool to get that movement correctly so that they could then perform that kind of stuff in the ring.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity where if you are truly settled in on Roman Reigns being your guy on SmackDown, this would make it fresh. It would either, my thing is, it's either this or you get a female into that bloodline group, whether it's maybe a Naomi, who is the real life wife of one of the Usos, or maybe you're looking at the Taminas of the world, who is part of the family bloodline as well. And ironically, the woman who was with the Usos when they ironically debuted. I think this is something that you could possibly see, and I would totally be for it. So yeah, Bobby, I'm gonna say this is where we have to end the brunch. But what do you have going on, and where can we find you, and what's going on in the Prairie Pro Wrestling world?
Well, we just wrapped up a show last weekend, so obviously I got some editing ahead of me. I've got to get some matches out from our October show and from last week. So that's what I've been busy with at the moment. Not much on the Ring Respect radio front at the moment. So as always, you can always catch me here Sunday at the premiere show of Love Wrestling, usually with my good tag team partner Parrish right here each and every Sunday. So yeah, check us out here. And you know what? Before we go, I also want to say big thank you to anybody who tunes into any of the content here on Love Wrestling. If you spend any part of your day tuning in to take in what we have to say and join in on the conversation, thank you very much for all the love and support. It means the world to all of us here at Love Wrestling.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said that any better. So very much thankful for everyone who took the time out of their schedule today to check us out and listen to us ramble on about semantics. Yep. But yeah, no, if anybody is in the Edmonton area or if anybody else is not even in there, make sure you're checking out all your independent local pro wrestling. If you're in the Edmonton area, please come out to the Norwood Legion tonight at about 7:30 and check out Real Canadian Wrestling, as myself and the Son of Irish are set to defend our newly crowned tag team championships. Where if by chance you are living under a rock and you have not seen it, let me look at this beautiful championship right there. Oh, it's shiny. It's like AEW. It's a shiny new toy, right? But with that being said, as we take on the Big Cat Rescue, the team of Kato and Steven Styles, and we're looking to defend and succeed the reigning defending RCW tag team champion. See, I'm stealing everybody's catchphrases now.
Of the world.
Well, no, they say Canadian on there. So
okay.
It says Canadian, but we got a globe of all of North America. So what say you on that one? But yeah, no, please go check and support your local independent wrestling, because you never know the show you go to, who might you see? I'm always going to say my first show, I saw a guy by the name of Kenny Omega as he was a young lad, and then now look at what he's doing. Absolutely amazing to have that as just an experience and just something as a moment. I got to see this guy before he kind of blew everything out of the water. So yeah, make sure you do that. Make sure you go to whatamaneuver.net/love wrestling and all that stuff. Go to Love Wrestling CA on all your platforms, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I don't even know. I'm just rambling on. I'm sure we have it all, but make sure you go there and check everything out. Ratethispodcast.com/love wrestling CA. We like to be a number one. So yeah, you're number one in our hearts. Let us be number one in yours. Bobby, I want to just say thank you for joining tonight and today, I guess. And hopefully you have a great week, and we'll see each other soon.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.